Well, hello, my esteemed audience, both within and beyond the borders of the Gambia. I am here today, as promised, on this Friday, the 6th day of October 2023, to resume reading from my book, Testimony of a Gambian Military Officer and Diplomat, in both the English and Wolof languages. I am currently delving into Chapter 1, spanning a series of 3 episodes, with today's session concluding this first chapter. As a reminder, Chapter 1 vividly recounts the events of the coup's inaugural day, a startling occurrence for many Gambians, myself included, as a relatively senior captain actively serving in the Gambian National Army at the time. I recounted how I, like many Gambians, was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. I recollected how, despite being alerted to the coup plot at Yundum Barracks 5 days earlier, I dismissed it as unfounded after conducting an exhaustive investigation that yielded no substantive evidence. Even the night before, a family member concerned about the rumor brought it to the attention of my wife, and I assured her of its fallacy. However, in this closing segment of Chapter 1 and the subsequent chapters, I will continue reading, among other significant developments, the unfolding of the coup d'etat on the 22nd of July 1994 until its ultimate success, and how 22 years later the successive regime was voted out of office by the current Gambia government. Let us proceed. I was under the Army's principal staff officer at the Ministry of Defense, a role I had occupied since 1992. When the Nigerian commanders arrived in the country, I had held onto the hope for transformative changes in the Army's administration. Initially, their efforts were promising. They established an administrative headquarters for the GNA and introduced terms and conditions of services that offered improved salaries, allowances, limited housing plans, and other long missing benefits. The British Army training team started everything, but never bothered about the growth of the Army beyond what they could manage at Yundum Barracks, even while the Army grew rapidly. Yet, the promotion system remained problematic, continuing to prioritize enlistment date over an individual's qualification and competence. This flaw, in my view, perpetuated confusion and indiscipline within the ranks, and the Nigerian commanders failed to address it, despite earlier promises from Army Commander General Abubakar Tada to solve the problem. The significance of rectifying these promotions and appointment issues for the success of their mission was lost on them. Frustrated and seeing little progress, I contemplated leaving the Gambian National Army in favor of joining the TSG. I initiated contact with relevant authorities, including the President's Secretary General, seeking assistance for my transfer. The Secretary General, in return, assured me that if Commander Dada consented, my departmental transfer to the police force will be duly facilitated. Following Commander Dada's advice, I drafted a formal letter requesting permission leading to an invitation from Colonel Akoji to his office for a discussion a week later. He questioned my decision to leave when efforts were underway to improve the army. I explained the lingering impact of a gunshot injury I had sustained 6 years ago, which left my right leg permanently deformed and impairing my effectiveness as an infantry officer. I argued that the TSG's nature of policing duties aligned better with my physical condition, offering me greater prospects than remaining in the army. Colonel Akoji wasn't keen on my departure and asked for patience while he explored alternative options within the army. During that week, I received a letter signed by General Dada denying my request to transfer to the TSG, but offering me a position as the Army's principal staff officer at the Ministry of Defense. My role as the principal staff officer at the Ministry of Defense was primarily to represent the Gambian National Army, its activities to both civilian authorities within the department and beyond. I assumed the role of coordinating military affairs related to the Gambia Army within the office, processing crucial matters from the ministry to the Gambia Army Central Command. Additionally, I managed the coordination and facilitation of foreign training for officers departing and returning from overseas assignments, overseeing their allowances, travel arrangements, and providing counseling support. Furthermore, I handled correspondences concerning military matters between the ministry and external parties, including foreign embassies in the Gambia who directed scholarships and requests through the principal staff office. This position granted me an in-depth understanding of the Army affairs, Ministry of Defense operations, and broader external interactions. The special responsibility, therefore, prompted my active engagement in the preparations, planning, and reception of the USS Lamont County vessel during its visit. I collaborated closely with the members of the United States Embassy in the Gambia during this period. Consequently, on the morning of 22nd July 1994, my assignment was to be part of the escort for Captain Bocart, the American ship's captain, and his aides on a series of courtesy call tours to various political and military offices in Banjul. The itinerary included visits to Vice President Samate's office, the Army headquarters, the Gambia Marine Unit headquarters, and the office of the Mayor of Banjul. Accompanying the American military visitors as well were Mr. Andrew Winters, the U.S. ambassador in the Gambia, Mr. James Knight, his political advisor, and Major McLean, the U.S. military attaché responsible for Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and the Gambia. Upon our arrival at the State House in a motorcade around 9:30 a.m. for a 9 a.m. appointment with Vice President Suku Samate, it quickly became apparent that an unusual event was unfolding. Fatigued onlookers had gathered from the premises entrance to the multipurpose office building, stared by an unfolding situation. The president's absence from his office was evident, yet the majority of his bodyguards remained stationed around the area. I surmised that he might still be recuperating from his recent extensive international journey, having returned the previous night. The president had a penchant for globe-trotting, an inclination to embark on spontaneous flights across the world, a trait that sometimes cast him in a seemingly idle light. It was perplexing to me how he had departed the country about a month ago amidst the turmoil of the command crisis within the GNA, which had significantly contributed to the subsequent army rebellion. This scenario bore a striking resemblance to an event in 1981 when the country faced a crisis within the field force due to another command predicament. On that occasion, he had left for England to attend Prince Charles and Princess Diane's wedding ceremony, even as tensions reached a boiling point at the Field Force Bakau Barracks. Curiously, 2 days after that 29 June 1981 wedding, and while he was still engrossed in the festivities at Buckingham Palace, rebel leader Kufang Bamba Jabang launched a near successful coup d'etat on June 31, 1981. Thanks to the timely intervention of Senegal's military forces, the rebellion was crushed within a week. You see, President Jawla, having held office for over 30 years, had ostensibly been transformed into more of a Mansa, a term translating to king in the Mandinka language, than a responsive president. His inner circle had perfected the art of selectively conveying information to him, catering to his preferences, and shielding him from unpleasant truths. It appeared unlikely that anyone from his close advisors had informed him of the escalating tensions surrounding the Nigerian commanders within the Gambian National Army. General Abubakar Dada's confrontational stance and his impending replacement by a second Nigerian commander seemed to have gone unnoticed by the president. But if President Jawla had been appraised of the gravity of the situation and still chose to depart for a holiday in England, as he indeed did, the responsibility for the mutiny's catalyst so squarely rest on his shoulders. The first inkling of the main trouble within the GNA that morning came from Captain Mamadi Lankoma, the Gambian National Army aide-de-camp or ADC to President Dembo Jawla. I was escorting the guests into Vice President Samate's office when the captain urgently beckoned for my attention. He emerged from the crowd and fervently signaled me to meet him. Balancing my concern for the guest needs against the captain's obvious urgency, I hesitated momentarily before leaving them to descend the stairs alone. We have just received reports that the soldiers stationed at Yundum Barracks have forcibly accessed the armory, seizing all the weapons, and are en route to Banjul with intentions to overthrow the government, the captain disclosed, his words laden with gravity. Processing this information took a moment, and a wave of shock washed over me, a sensation that lingered throughout the ensuing chaos. Every subsequent action I took was driven more by instinct than deliberate contemplation. The prospect of armed conflict in the nation was deeply unsettling. The memories of the abortive coup by Kufang Bamba Jabang 13 years earlier still loom large in minds of many Gambians. A repeat of such an event could have catastrophic consequences, potentially rivaling or even exceeding the turmoil in neighboring regions like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Casamance, which had already caused an influx of refugees into the Gambia. A significant portion of these refugees comprised young males who were nothing more than bandits, ex-rebels, ex-combatants, and criminals. Consequently, any coup d'etat tainted by violence and lawlessness had the potential to rouse the undesirable elements within the nation, both foreign and domestic, leading to disruptive activities surpassing the turmoil we faced in 1981. I have always maintained the belief that Senegal will never idly observe security deteriorate in the Gambia, allowing it to spiral into an uncontrollable crisis within the sub-region without intervening militarily to reinstate or to restore law and order. However, if such an operation were to replicate the challenges they encountered 13 years ago with the under-equipped and under-trained Gambia Field Force, I anticipated an even more arduous undertaking this time with the well-equipped and better-trained Gambia National Army. Concerning the Nigerians spearheading the GNA, their actions to me remain uncertain. But should they choose to militarily intervene to quash a military rebellion in the Gambia, their success will hinge upon Senegal's wholehearted cooperation or assistance in mobilizing and deploying their forces. I wondered how and why President Abdou Diouf of Senegal and General Sani Abacha of Nigeria at that time will coordinate such a military effort to rescue the PPP government of President Sarr Dembo Jawla. Moreover, the internal command crisis among the Nigerians during this period alone cast doubt on their ability to effectively rescue President Jawla. However, if the reports of the soldiers breaking into the Yundum Barracks armory and arming themselves were accurate, preventing their seizure of power would prove exceedingly challenging, if not completely impossible. The TSG forces had by then lacked that capability entirely. I appeal to Captain Koma to grant me a moment to accompany the visiting dignitaries to the Vice President's office. I will be back shortly, I assured him, racing to catch up with the visitors. Upon our arrival at the Vice President's office, it appeared that the visiting American dignitaries remain unaware of the unfolding situation. The Permanent Secretary, Mr. Saul Mam Jangha, stood by the door awaiting our entrance. He refrained from speaking until I inquired from him. Sir, have you been informed about the situation with the soldiers at Yundum Barracks? With a mere nod, Mr. Jaha acknowledged my question, although he disinclined to delve further into the matter in the presence of the guest. Nonetheless, the Vice President had overheard and positioned himself in the center of the room, the door partially open. In response, Mr. Jaha swung the door fully open, and electric tension filled the air. Vice President Suku Samate began to elaborate. Indeed, gentlemen, we have just received word that the soldiers at Yundum Barracks are once again causing a disturbance. He attempted to downplay the severity, likening it to a previous protest related to GNA peacekeeping soldiers from Liberia. Ambassador Winters interjected, his tone measured. Your Excellency, should you need to address a more pressing national matter, we will understand and excuse ourselves. We could return to the ship and wait your signal to come back or to return. The Vice President swiftly responded, his plea imbued with urgency. No, I implore you gentlemen to leave. Please come inside. You never know when we might require your assistance. Having secured permission from the Vice President, I hurried downstairs to reconnect with Captain Koma. Well, my dear listeners, thanks for your attention, but this is where chapter 1 ends. I will be back on Monday, inshallah, the 10th of October, to start chapter 2. Have a nice weekend and Juma Mubarak.